you don't even realize you have a problem, because when even with senior professionals, they aren't making rookie mistakes. I have intentionally given this, it's a very provocative name.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are diving into a topic that has been around for decades but still continues to challenge teams during audit: QC dissolution testing. I'm really pleased to be joined by Pereira, who brings deep expertise in this space. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Dasuni. It's always a pleasure to be here.
So, we have received quite a good number of questions from our clients in the QC field. To start us off, I will bring out the first question. Dissolution testing has been around for a long time. Why does QC dissolution still remains a recurring pain point in audit QC?
A very interesting question, and contradictory as well, because what you said is absolutely right. This test has been around for so long. The thing is that dissolution as a test, the ones that we have around now, they are designed to measure the drug release and not necessarily designed to discriminate. And the regulations and as well as the functionality of a dissolution test has evolved. Earlier in the day, the function of a dissolution test was just to measure drug release as a function of time. Whereas when you look at it now, from the warning letters that FDA has issued, it cites a dissolution test and its lack of discriminatory power. You have even the AMA pushing back to the applicants so that they justify the quantity of surfactant that is required in a dissolution method. You have now ICH Q14, which gives the regulators a framework to ask the applicants exactly what is the reason behind designing this dissolution test. So to summarize, the function of a dissolution test now has gone much beyond what it was initially. It is designed now to discriminate and identify batches that can potentially be bio-inequivalent. And the main beauty of it is you don't even realize you have a problem, because when even with senior professionals, they aren't making rookie mistakes. The thing is that they are operating from an old paradigm, which has now shifted. And you do not realize that you even have a problem until the moment you're sitting in front of a regulator, or you are left with, or you receive a deficiency letter, where then you realize that your dissolution justification wasn't meant to withstand that kind of regulatory scrutiny.
So what do you mean, like in a practical term, what do you mean audit proof is?
I have intentionally given this, it's a very provocative name, I know. And definitely, this is not meant to be some kind of magic shield that will protect your method. The main intent behind a method being audit proof is that a dissolution method, when developed, including the specification, should always be based on good science and first principle. That is the intent here. Because now regulators are looking for three things. One is biorelevance. What exactly is the dissolution medium that you have selected? Is it the same? Does it stimulate the same physiological environment your drug product is expected to be exposed to? Second is the discriminatory power. Is your dissolution method capable of rejecting batches that can potentially be non-bioequivalent? And third, which is very surprising and not many pay much attention to, is the language that you use in your dossier, because that matters. What happens is that how do you justify that actually brings your story across to the regulator, as opposed to just putting all the trials that you have in it and expecting the reviewer or the regulator to make sense of what you have done during development.
Yeah, and I think language itself creates a big problem in the dissolution methods. Can you please expand a little bit on it so we can get an idea?
Yeah, exactly. Because Now, what happens is there is a difference in the paragraph that tells you what has been done versus the paragraph that explains the decision which was taken to develop a dissolution method. What most analytical scientists or even CMC professionals have been trained is for the former, whereas what the regulator is looking for is the latter story. So there are certain trigger words which are unknowingly being used, and these act as red flags when a reviewer is reviewing your dossier. So even the CMC professional or the analyst might not know that they have been using these words, but what that happens that weakens the justification for the developed dissolution method and the specification that is set. So during this masterclass, we'll actually walk through real case studies where we will see both the before and the after. We'll look at the actual case studies where you have justification that have been drafted using those red flag words, and then we will look at how this could be improved using a much more better term which can express your justification decision appropriately.
So you often mention the importance of thinking differently. What does that actually look like in practice?
Thinking differently is challenging the assumptions that we have carried forward for all these years. This is especially important for senior professionals because there are so many concepts that we have carried during our training over the years that we do not stop to question. Like, I'll give you an example: phosphate buffer. That's an absolutely safe medium that is compendial, very regular routine, which we have always been using. But there is also another medium, which is the bicarbonate buffer, that is actually more physiologically relevant as opposed to a phosphate buffer. Now, I'm not actually recommending that you go and throw away your phosphate buffer methods and replace it with bicarbonate buffer. That's not the idea here. The point is understanding why you are using a method or any medium or apparatus. To challenge that, when you ask that why, you also understand there could be specific situations where that regularly used medium might not be the best fit. So this section is not just theory, or it is not just for the sake of challenging assumptions, but is actually based on published studies and real world evidence. This broadens the thinking. So there could be instances where the routine might not work. At that time, what would be the alternatives that could be used?
So it's not about throwing away what works, but really understanding why it works.
Yeah, exactly. So you do not throw away, you actually use those different alternatives to make your development process more robust.
Yeah. So if you don't mind explaining a little bit on this, what does weak dissolution methods actually cost on an organization?
Yeah, that actually is something that we do not take into account very much while developing a dissolution method. But the most visible cost here is in terms of getting a day 120 deficiency letter, or in terms of FDA getting a complete response letter, where you are asked to justify the method, and at times it could also, at the worst, result in more trials during your review process. It can set you back even in terms of reformulation. So we are talking here in terms of both loss of timeline. The second less visible impact here is in terms of spec creep. That is, if your dissolution specification is not scientifically anchored, what could happen is you might end up with specifications that are either too stringent, that is, it would cause an unnecessary burden and fail perfectly good batches, or on the other side, you could have very wide dissolution specification that can pass almost any batch, even the batches that even failing product batches. So that again is not desirable either from quality or even from the patient perspective. And the third aspect here, third loss here, which is actually very close to me, is the loss of credibility. Because the moment a reviewer or an inspector sees the justification for the dissolution method, which is weak, that creates that impression is carried forward to all other information that goes into the dossier. And even before the conversation starts, you have kind of lost the narrative there, because that results in loss of credibility for the entire dossier. So overall, these are the impacts that in dissolution development that has not been strategically developed that could cause.
I think you explained it very well.
Okay.
And for those considering like attending the masterclass, what will they be able to do differently after? What are the key incomes that we would expect from someone?
Primarily, here every concept carries a tool. So there would be a practical application for every concept that is discussed here. So here we are not talking in terms of reading out the guideline. We will not be looking at what are the theory for the sake of theory. Like day 1 and 2, we will be talking about science and experimental design, but that would be in a more structured way, which can be used reproducibly. In day 2, we are going to look at regulatory communication. How do you go about writing different justifications, and what is actually the framework you can use? Because there is a reproducible framework that can be used. There are certain hacks that you can use to ensure that every single time your justification actually addresses the real concern. Then along with that, on day 2, we will also be talking about thinking differently, as we saw, challenging the preset assumptions. Day 3 is a bit different. That is where everything comes together, whatever we have discussed on day 1 and 2, where we will be looking at interactive case studies. We'll work together. So the beauty of it is that not me giving the answers. Of course, that would be a part of it, but with our shared industrial experiences, working this together. Because I can stand for 3 days and explain, you will listen to it. But at the end of the day, if you have to go back to your workplace and apply this, this is where this would help, because these are the actual scenarios which you have worked to, applied your own understanding, gained understanding from others as well in the room. So this shared understanding, along with the frameworks that we'll be looking at, this will help you to take back something that is more tangible and applicable in your daily work.
And finally, what would you like to say to someone that would be on still considering whether they want to join or not? What would you like to say to them?
Ask you one question. When was the last time you have challenged the biorelevance of your method? Not simply updated it because you had to, but actually looked at your dissolution method from the first principles based on science. Now, if your answer here would be that we usually use the dissolution database method, or we have till date, we have never received any query, or there was never a dissolution method failure. Well, this is the answer that you need to spend 3 days of your time in this masterclass, because this is definitely going to help you. Dissolution as an entire area, this is evolving, and this masterclass will ensure that your methods, your approach, your dossier, and your QC programs, they also are aligned with this evolving dissolution area.
Thank you so much. I think we received great answers for the questions, and it's been a really valuable conversation, and I hope to see you in the future masterclass. And if you like to explore this topic further, make sure to check out our upcoming masterclass. We'll include all the details in the description. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Destiny. It was a delight to be here. Thank you. Have a good day.